Odds are your corrective actions haven't failed. They've succeeded at the wrong job. Let me say that again. If your corrective actions haven't delivered the consistently improving outcomes you'd hoped for, it's because they've targeted the wrong things. I'm pretty sure that you are genuinely committed to making things better and safer, and that you want to do so in a way that sticks, where things keep getting better and safer. Well, it won't ever happen with old-school corrective actions. You must begin by de-thinking most everything you've likely been taught about human performance and performance improvement. For example, back to those corrective actions, which undoubtedly involved additional rules or tools like retraining, boxes checked, punishment for the perpetrators. These are examples of pruning branches, while the tree itself, unfortunately, remains unhealthy. Thoreau nailed the concept back in 1854. There are 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil to one who is striking at the root. This is where de-thinking begins, under the surface. In your operation, you won't find the roots on a dashboard or in your KPIs. They are, however, where your focus should be. Why? The roots represent your culture. For a tree, the roots determine the fruits. Across your team and organization, culture determines results. Now, let's get a bit closer to the core of the core, to so-called best practices. Want to know what an unexamined best practice can cost? In December of 1799, George Washington was struggling to breathe. His doctors administered the gold standard medical treatment of the day, bloodletting. With 4 cuts over the next 12 hours, roughly 40% of his blood was drained into a bowl. He died that evening. And here's the part almost nobody knows. The data that bloodletting was not a good treatment already existed. A journalist named William Cobbett had already shown that deaths increased where aggressive bloodletting had been practiced. A prominent physician sued him for publishing it. The guilty verdict came down the same day Washington died. Cobbett was ruined financially. Best practice? By whose data? Next question. When it comes to humans doing work, where did our currently overused and abused compliance-based ideas even come from? They reared their heads in 1911 when Frederick Winslow Taylor's scientific management taught the industrial world that workers were mere hands while managers were the only ones with brains. In other words, thinking flows down, compliance flows up. We've now spent more than a century pruning around that unfortunate assumption. Meanwhile, 84 to 94% of workplace mistakes continue to be set up by the processes, programs, systems, and structures built by managers, built at the so-called brains level. It's time to recognize that workers, team members who perform the tasks that make things work and generate output, have most of the answers you're seeking. They know where problems, challenges, and issues lie, and they most often had great ideas on how to make things better. Enlightened leaders now recognize it's time for thinking and knowledge to also flow upward. Finally, let's address the well-worn adage, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. This doesn't work in human and organizational performance. Why not? Entropy. A natural force without a culprit. No one's to blame, and yet everyone's to blame. No malice, no overt negligence, just the tide doing what tides do. Work drifts from design. Risk perception dulls. Setups accumulate. Well, on the day-to-day inside, it all looks like a typical Thursday, or Tuesday, or Wednesday. Left alone, drift and accumulation, also known as organizational entropy, quietly eat away at your operation. Surface-level focus, best practices that aren't at all best, century-old boxed-in thinking, and insidious naturally occurring forces. It sounds like a lot, and it is. This is why so many consider human performance to be a mystery. But it's not a mystery at all. Not when you move beyond simply hacking at its branches. Your answers and solutions do not lie in another program. They do not lie in more rules and tools. De-thinking frees your mind to get to the core of the core, to the first principles of human and organizational performance. Look, Rules tell people what to do. Principles teach people how to think. And while this all sounds very complex, you can now get in line for Repsit.ai, a suite of intelligent assistants that can 5 to 10x your insights, your awareness, and your capabilities to improve performance, and do so sustainably. The Drift and Accumulation Early Warning System, the first intelligent assistant in the Repsit.ai suite, uses your data to reveal drift and accumulation while setups are still reversible. It's not autonomous AI, it takes no actions, it sharpens your awareness, it flags the truth, and offers insights on how to move forward. Beta testing starts soon. Enlistment ends July 31st. First 10 wins. Go to Repsit.ai/LP and catch the drift. Your de-thinking of human performance starts now.